Thank you very much, JC. It was wonderful to arrive this morning and find I was to be introduced by an old friend. Thank you all very much. It's my pleasure to join you here in Iloilo City. Even though I've had the pleasure of visiting the Philippines a number of times, this is my first time here, and I congratulate the organizers and local leadership who've done such a fantastic job in bringing so many delegates to the area as part of framing these important APEC discussions. I look forward to lively discussions throughout the day on the key issues facing MSMEs, and I rather like that MSME pronunciation. It has all sorts of connotations. But I'd like to not just talk about the well-trod constraints discussion, but the positive and progressive sharing of dynamic new developments and policies and services that address their issues effectively and sustainably. It never ceases to amaze me that we talk about how important MSMEs are to our economy and the sheer numbers that they are in terms of jobs, contribution to GDP, and yet we continue to talk about them as an afterthought or a trickle down from the actual policies. MSME policies should be central because they are central to our economies, whether we treat them as such or not. The typical issues for MSMEs are those we often hear and are touched upon in the overall description of the session that you all saw. Access to capital, access to know-how or skills, access to markets, infrastructure, including the physical infrastructure of not just roads and ports, but today's make or break global communications infrastructure. And then the intangible infrastructure, the governance-related infrastructure, such as property rights, contract law, dispute resolution mechanisms, and all of those issues that provide hurdles for small businesses as well. With the wide range of backgrounds in the audience here today in mind, I'd like to frame our ongoing discussions of how to address these recognized constraints, not by focusing solely on the size of the enterprise, but on the type of enterprise in terms of its growth segment. In this way, we can turn our attention to how best to maximize that growth, providing for greater success at both the enterprise level and the economy level. But first, what picture forms in your mind when I say MSME? Depending on your own line of work, your market experience, or your tendency towards certain stereotypes, that picture may be a villager with a sewing machine, a high-tech mogul, a locally well-known family enterprise, or a multinational business. And how do those pictures change when I say woman-owned enterprise? When I first ran through that list, was the villager with the sewing machine the only woman pictured in your mind's eye? Was the high-tech mogul a young guy? Was the family enterprise an older gentleman? Was the multinational a money-hungry behemoth? Let's be sure to check our own assumptions if we're to truly move the dialogue forward. Understanding the issues for MSMEs and providing policy environments and support services to meet their needs requires first being clear about the picture we are addressing and recognizing that there are many such pictures. Let me draw a few of these pictures in more detail as we look at the issues for their success and growth. Markets characterized by high unemployment are filled with so-called entrepreneurs or micro-entrepreneurs who simply can't find jobs to feed their families. These subsistence or forced entrepreneurs are a distinct strata for whom trade debates are often focused on the negative effects, and therefore issues include robust job creation strategies, labor mobility, and informal sector reduction through lowering of key barriers to business entry, such as licensing fees, processes, time, and distance. Empowering women in the informal sector is an especially effective way to create possibilities for new business models and potential for sustainable economic growth and improved livelihood. Like other small businesses, however, they need clear incentives to move into the formal sector. Whether micro, small, or medium, businesses that are addressing local market needs can build a solid and growing business that supports their family and perhaps some workers. These are the businesses usually thought of as forming the backbone of many economies. They're often small-scale job creators who might or might not want to build an expanding entrepreneurial presence. Yet their aggregate employment statistics are enormously important. Though they may seem to be unlikely participants in the direct stream of global trade, they are very much part of the trade picture. They may be sourcing inputs across borders or facing competition from abroad. Or they may be potential suppliers to larger businesses engaging in trade. Regardless of their size, they have demonstrated some business success and might grow further with additional capacity building in management, finance, and marketing in particular. The capital that they need for growth is typically tapped first from a circle of family and friends. Microloans may serve some, others may outgrow this level of financing quickly. If they're suppliers to larger companies, more channels for financing may be available based on contracts or financing directly from their larger partners. Bank lending remains important and needed resource for this segment. Are the banks prepared to meet these needs? Can they lend based on business plan analysis? What are their collateral requirements and related regulations regarding loan performance ratios, bankruptcy, and such? The other needs of this segment of small business include defining and defending their competitive advantage, developing and maintaining their distribution channels, access to inputs for manufacturing, which may include cross-border logistics, facilitating effective trade show participation. Many don't know how to do this and require extensive hand-holding to make connections and to follow up appropriately to seal a deal. Identifying new markets, providing information, analysis, linkages, communications support, and structures such as legal and insurance products. They need access to a wide range of local services from both government and commercial or nonprofit service providers, notably from the business associations where they can achieve some economies of scale for training and information and can build a wider network for peer support, customers, vendors, and partners. As they succeed and grow, these businesses may also face issues typically related to family business needs, such as succession planning and negotiating corporate governance issues in family relationships. For firms which are explicitly export-oriented, all of these needs remain, as well as additional crucial issues around inventory management, transport, and logistics that include unfamiliar regulatory and customs regimes, as well as added communications costs and potential language barriers. Technology helps to address these challenges, but they remain particularly acute for smaller firms or for those who are new to exporting. Another segment of the high growth-oriented firms are often the stars, where support is emphasized. Many programs focus in particular on the even more narrow, high-tech, high-growth firms. And though these firms may be very small, both in size and in number, rather than calling them micro, our language shifts to denote our expectations when we call them startups instead. With the potential for high-flying success often comes higher risk, however, and more of the trial and error learning that some call failure. Their capital needs are similar to those described already, yet the nature of these high-flying businesses may open more risk-tolerant sources of funding as well. So they start talking about venture capital investment, typically seasoned investors of larger fund pools that take an equity stake in their business, which the enterprise may or may not want, frankly. Many venture capitalists make great ROIs on non-tech businesses, by the way. They're looking at growth prospects and profitability, whatever the sector. Angel investors are another group that often comes with this sector. Individuals who take equity stake, but who also take a much more in-depth engagement approach to their investments, helping the business with their own expertise while providing a bridge between the friends and family lending and larger capital options. And these days, there's much talk about crowdfunding. You may be familiar with Kiva, Kickstarter, and various other crowdfunding platforms. These can be donation-based, reward-based, equity-based, or even debt-based. And it's important to understand the distinctions of each of these kinds of platforms. This is a rapidly changing hot topic. If you're interested in crowdfunding as a source of capital, I encourage you to follow the leaders in the field. Sherwood Neese of Crowdfund Capital Advisors, or the UK-based altfi.com. These companies and a number of others like them, I just mentioned a couple, are filling the need for small businesses to determine if alternative financing is right for them, and if so, what type, and which of these many new platforms is the best fit. They also help potential investors understand how to be part of this new peer-to-peer or community-based funding landscape. And increasingly, they're addressing international needs for legal and regulatory analysis to support effective implementation of local initiatives. So how are your laws adjusting to these new opportunities? It's moving much faster than earlier pushes to provide micro-lending or to develop small business lending capabilities within traditional banks. Are you prepared? Are you engaging with those most well-placed to help you figure out the way forward? This is a trend that's coming rapidly at everyone. It's not one that's going to slow down and wait for traditional approaches. All of these MSMEs face numerous daily challenges just to stay open. Entering the complex world of trade requires additional support and guidance from a variety of sources. As we consider the various growth segments of these businesses, we can't forget that they also face challenges from those who are already benefiting from the status quo. And in all of these business segments, women face the same challenges as every other business, but with more challenges often added to their struggle, depending on the country, potentially including limited freedoms to work or travel and limited protections when they do, unequal legal rights regarding property, inheritance, legal standing before the courts, and labor protections, more limited access to education, capital, and networks, greater need for child care services, and increased work-family tensions. If policymakers are truly interested in unleashing the potential of their country's small enterprises, they would not tolerate that half of their population faces needless artificial barriers to economic success. The overarching challenge for policymakers and MSME supporters is not to address business and trade as a whole, but to understand each of these growth segments and determine policies and services based on a more nuanced approach, designed to support the enterprises where they are and to shepherd those who do have growth potential through to the next level, recognizing that not all of them will be those growth entrepreneurs. How to do that? First of all, we have to not be grounded in assumptions, but in sound information. Reliable and transparent of all manner of government statistics are challenging and needed. In particular, the failure of government agencies to collect statistics on women-owned businesses has impeded policy development and the overall effectiveness of gender-based programs. Governments must collect sex disaggregated data on suppliers that can be used for gender analysis and evidence-based policy development. In addition to government statistics, independent think tanks are an important source of primary research, analysis, and recommendations. In the US, think tanks provide both solicited and much unsolicited advice to the government on how it can strengthen its trade assistance. There are also many examples of governmental or quasi-governmental agencies providing information and support for small businesses and trade, some of them doing yeoman's work right here. Small business development agencies, export promotion agencies, special lending facilities, etc. For success with small businesses, these efforts must be clear, streamlined, non-bureaucratic, and preferably delivered in partnership with the organizations that are closest to the enterprises themselves, such as their membership associations, which governments can also support, but careful not to drive. As trade has become more interconnected, ever-present, and complex, these agencies must continually reassess their efforts to smooth the way and avoid the trap of becoming yet another bureaucratic morass for the enterprises they seek to help. Forums like these provide incredible learning opportunities for reflecting on new approaches to lowering barriers and encouraging growth. One of the things we discussed yesterday for governments in particular is to look at their own public procurement to tap the tremendous economic potential of women-owned businesses themselves. Are the government's procurement processes, standards, and requirements helping small business? Are they helping women-owned businesses? There are a lot of government agencies that are designed to tell others how their policies can help and how their actions can improve. Look internally as well. Government as a buyer has huge potential to influence the market. Government as a buyer from small business and from women-owned businesses can make a big difference. Other organizations include the independent business support organizations that provide services directly to markets based on demand for skills training, information and assistance on processes, market information, and market access, including visibility, networking, matchmaking, and trade delegations. Membership-based business service organizations additionally provide a direct channel of information and specific recommendations based on local realities to policymakers based on their on-the-ground relationship with members that provides a keen understanding of the changing needs and the impact of proposed or implemented rules. My own organization, WEConnect International, is just one example of a business membership organization providing direct services to increase trade. We're unique in that we started with the demand side of market access. Our members are major multinational corporations and other large buyers of goods and services who represent nearly $1 trillion in trade. They seek to diversify and strengthen their supply chains by working with women-owned suppliers, who are typically smaller businesses.